In human life, strength is often understood as the ability to conquer, control, win, or surpass others. From an early age, we are taught that being strong means not crying, not being weak, not wavering in the face of adversity. We admire those who possess power, iron will, and the capacity to suppress emotions and keep moving forward despite the pain inside. But if we look more deeply, we will see a great paradox. Many people who appear very strong on the outside are fractured on the inside. They may stand firm before life's storms, yet their inner world is filled with tension, fear, and insecurity. Buddhism does not view strength in the way the world commonly does. Instead of seeing strength as rigidity, Buddhism sees strength in softness. Instead of praising the ability to endure suffering by numbing one's emotions, Buddhism teaches us how to understand pain without being swallowed by it. Instead of encouraging us to build thick walls to protect ourselves, Buddhism invites us to open our hearts with mindfulness and compassion. Imagine a great mountain. Under the sunlight, it stands towering and unmoving amid wind and rain. People might think that the mountain's strength comes from the absolute hardness of stone. But if it were only dry, rigid rock, it would crack under too much pressure. What allows the mountain to endure for millions of years is not only its solidity, but its internal structure, the balance among geological layers, and its capacity to adapt over time. Likewise, the inner strength that Buddhism points to is not the act of bracing oneself to endure, but the steadiness that arises from a deep understanding of the nature of life. In the rhythm of modern life, people feel increasingly mentally exhausted. We chase success, fame, money, and relationships, yet the more we run, the more empty we feel. We fear failure, fear abandonment, fear not being good enough, fear losing control. This very fear makes us tense, defensive, closed off, and at times cruel to ourselves. We believe that the tighter we control our lives, the safer we will be, but in reality, the more we try to control, the more we suffer. Buddhism begins with a fundamental truth: life is impermanent. Everything changes, joy comes and goes, sorrow arises and fades, success can collapse in an instant, and failure can become a precious lesson. When we do not understand impermanence, we cling to what cannot be held forever, and it is this clinging that weakens us. We become dependent on praise, status, and the approval of others in order to feel valuable. But the strength that Buddhism teaches arises from letting go of that dependence. Inner strength in Buddhism is not about feeling no pain, but about being able to face suffering without being defeated by it. It is like a deep lake. On the surface there may be waves, but beneath there is stillness. A person with Buddhist inner strength is not someone who is never wounded, but someone who knows how to observe wounds with mindfulness. To hold them with compassion instead of avoiding or denying them. When the Buddha was still Prince Siddhartha, he lived in luxury, far removed from the suffering of the world. But one day, he stepped outside the palace and saw sickness, old age, and death. That very moment of facing raw reality shattered the illusion of a permanently secure life. He realized that no one could escape suffering through power or wealth alone. From there, he began his search for true strength, not the strength to dominate the world, but the strength to liberate the mind from ignorance. On the path of practice, he did not find enlightenment through harsh self-mortification, nor through indulgent pleasure. He realized that true strength lies in the middle way, the path of balance between two extremes. This is the foundation of the inner strength that Buddhism transmits, not running away from suffering, but not sinking into it either. Not closing the heart tightly, but not allowing emotions to blindly drag us along. In today's world, as we are swept up in social media, work, financial pressure, and complex relationships, Buddhist teachings on inner strength have become more urgent than ever. We need to learn how to pause, slow our breathing, observe our minds, and recognize that not every thought is the truth. Not every emotion needs to be acted upon. The strength that Buddhism teaches is not about defeating others, but about overcoming the conflicts within our own minds. Not about extinguishing emotions, but about understanding them. Not about building walls to protect ourselves, but about cultivating compassion so that fear no longer dominates us. When we learn to accept impermanence, we become less afraid of loss. When we learn to let go of ego, we are less wounded by praise and criticism. When we learn to live mindfully, we begin to see beauty in each present moment instead of constantly running toward the past or the future. From there, a new kind of strength is born, the strength of equanimity, of kindness, of wisdom, and of inner freedom. This article will lead you on a journey to explore how Buddhism defines and nurtures inner strength, from understanding the nature of suffering, cultivating mindfulness, practicing compassion, to transforming fear into wisdom. This is not a loud, showy, or overpowering strength, but a quiet, profound, and enduring one, the strength that helps you stand firm amid the storms of life while keeping your heart open. For in the end, the strongest person is not the one who has never fallen, but the one who knows how to rise in mindfulness, smile at impermanence, and continue forward with compassion. Inner strength in Buddhism is not built through force, but nurtured through understanding. When people still live in ignorance, we believe that we must become harder, faster, sharper, and more defensive in order to survive. But Buddhism points out that this very way of thinking makes us increasingly weaker, because it causes us to live in a state of constant tension, always fighting against life instead of living in harmony with it. The first step that Buddhism teaches for developing inner strength is learning to look directly at suffering without running away from it. Normally, when faced with pain, we have three familiar reactions: escape, resistance, or emotional numbness. We try to stay busy to forget our sadness, seek temporary pleasures to fill the emptiness, or pretend that we are not hurt. But Buddhism says that suffering is not an enemy to be destroyed, it is a silent teacher showing us what needs to be healed within the mind. When we sit still and observe our pain with mindfulness, something miraculous begins to happen. We realize that pain is not a solid, unchanging block, it is a flowing process that is constantly transforming. At times it is strong like ocean waves, at other times it softens like an evening breeze. This very observation creates a new kind of strength, the strength of someone who is no longer blindly dragged along by emotions. We still feel, but we are no longer swept away. Buddhism teaches that the root of much suffering comes from attachment to the self, to ideas such as, "This is who I am, I must be treated this way," or "I cannot endure this." The self is like a thick wall we build to protect ourselves, yet that very wall imprisons us. The more tightly we cling to an image of ourselves, the more easily we are wounded when that image is threatened. A small criticism can cause us to collapse because it touches our fragile ego. The strength that Buddhism points toward is the strength of someone who can loosen the grip on the ego without losing themselves. When we realize that the self is not a fixed entity, but a stream of experiences that is constantly changing, we become less defensive. We no longer need to prove that we are right all the time, no longer need to win every argument, no longer need to protect a perfect image in the eyes of others. And it is precisely this letting go that makes us more stable than ever. Another pillar of inner strength in Buddhism is mindfulness, the ability to be fully present with the current moment. In modern life, our minds are often pulled into the past or the future. We regret what has been lost, worry about what has not yet happened, and miss the beauty of the present. But those who practice mindfulness learn to place their attention on each breath, each step, each heartbeat. They do not run away from reality, but enter it with awareness. When we live mindfully, we are no longer unconsciously controlled by our emotions. We have inner space to choose a response instead of reacting automatically. A harsh remark no longer instantly triggers anger, we can pause, take a deep breath, and see the root of the reaction within ourselves. This pause is where true strength resides. Compassion is also a foundation of strength in Buddhism. Many people mistakenly believe that compassion is weakness, surrender, or allowing others to take advantage of us. But in Buddhism, compassion is one of the deepest forms of strength. When we have compassion for others, we are no longer bound by hatred or resentment. When we have compassion for ourselves, we no longer torture ourselves with harsh self-judgment. A person with compassionate inner strength is not easily shaken by insults. Because they understand that those who hurt others are often suffering inside. They do not condone wrongdoing, but they also do not allow their hearts to be poisoned by hatred. This is a very rare kind of strength in today's world, the strength of a heart that is open yet steady. Buddhism also teaches that inner strength grows when we accept impermanence. When we know that everything comes and goes, we no longer panic whenever life changes. We can grieve a loss without completely collapsing. We can rejoice in success without becoming arrogant or dependent on it. Impermanence helps us maintain a deep sense of balance. In meditation practice, one learns to see thoughts as clouds drifting across the sky of the mind. Sometimes the sky is full of storms, sometimes it is clear. But whether clouds come or go, the sky itself is always there. Realizing this, we begin to see that our deepest nature is not defined by temporary emotions. And this is the source of inner strength. The strength that Buddhism cultivates does not make us cold or indifferent, on the contrary, it makes us deeper. More sensitive to the suffering of others, without being drowned in it. We can listen to the pain of the world while still maintaining inner peace. In relationships, those who practice the teachings of Buddhism do not seek to control others. They learn to set boundaries with calmness, to say no without anger, to love without possessing. They understand that connection is not clinging, and letting go is not abandonment. When facing failure, they do not see it as proof of worthlessness, but as a natural part of the learning journey. When facing success, they do not see it as evidence of superiority, but as a fortunate condition to be used responsibly. Ultimately, inner strength in the spirit of Buddhism is not a fixed destination, but a continuous process of returning to oneself, returning to the breath, to the body, to the heart, and to awareness. Each day we practice a little, we become softer toward life, yet more resilient in the face of storms. And within that softness, we discover a strength that no violence can destroy, a peace that no circumstance can take away. When we look back on the entire journey of life, we gradually realize that the strength people often seek outside themselves, status, wealth, fame, admiration, is not what can keep us standing firm in the great storms of fate. These things may help us feel strong for a while, but when upheaval arrives, when loss strikes, when illness knocks at the door, when loneliness envelopes us, we then see that external strength is far too fragile to protect the soul. Buddhism invites us to return to a completely different perspective. Instead of seeking strength in the outside world, nurture strength from within. And that strength is not built through hardness, but through understanding, not created through control, but through letting go, not born from fear, but from mindfulness and compassion. Inner strength in the spirit of Buddhism is like a small lamp in the darkness. It does not dispel all the night, but it provides enough light so that we do not lose our way. When we learn to slow down our breathing, observe our minds, and listen to the subtle movements deep within the heart, we begin to realize that peace is not something we must search for far away, it has always been present, simply waiting for us to return. On stormy days, when life seems to be against us, when things do not unfold as we hope, the teachings of Buddhism remind us. This too is just a cloud passing by. Sadness is not our essence, failure does not define us, and wounds are not the end. We may hurt, we may cry, we may feel exhausted, but beneath it all, there is still a quiet space that remains unmoved. This strength grows day by day as we practice mindfulness in very small things, when we drink a cup of tea in silence, when we walk slowly along a familiar path, when we listen to others without judgment, when we look at our own pain with gentleness instead of harshness. Each moment of awareness is a brick that builds a solid foundation within. Buddhism also reminds us that strength is not about separating ourselves from the world, but about living more deeply within it. A person with inner strength does not avoid the suffering of humanity, but neither do they allow themselves to be drowned in it. They walk through life with an open heart, ready to love, ready to forgive, ready to let go when necessary. When we understand impermanence, we are less terrified of change. When we understand non-self, we are less wounded by praise and criticism. When we cultivate compassion, we are less imprisoned by hatred. When we practice mindfulness, we reclaim authorship of our lives, not by controlling everything, but by being fully present with each moment. And then, one day, we realize that the greatest strength is not standing on a high peak looking down on others, but being able to stand firmly on storm-swept ground while keeping the heart soft. Not winning every battle, but no longer having to fight with ourselves. The inner strength that Buddhism teaches does not make us distant or cold, it makes us more humane, more tolerant, more profound. We begin to see suffering not only as a disaster, but also as a doorway to wisdom. We see that in every crack of the heart, light can enter. If you are feeling tired, lost, or doubtful of yourself, remember that you are not weak, you are simply in a phase that calls for more healing and awareness. And the path of Buddhism is always there to walk with you, the path of the breath, of stillness, of understanding and love. The journey of building inner strength is not a race, nor a goal to be achieved at all costs. It is a process of returning to yourself, to your true nature, to the peace that has always been there. Each day, simply by pausing a little, breathing a little deeper, observing your mind a little more clearly, you are already walking the path of inner strength. And each of these small steps will gradually transform how you see life, how you face suffering, and how you love yourself and others. Thank you for walking with us on this journey of exploring how Buddhism teaches inner strength. If these reflections have touched your heart, helped you look more deeply into yourself, or brought you a little peace, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. We deeply appreciate every story, every feeling, every experience you share. And if you wish to continue accompanying us on the path of learning about Buddhism, meditation, and inner strength, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next profound offerings. Each video is an invitation to return to yourself, to slow down, listen, and live with greater awareness. May you always find peace amid impermanence, steadiness amid change, and the light of wisdom in the darkness of the mind. See you again on the next journey.